Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Hello and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherie.
And I'm David.
And we have started down our several episode process of talking about betrayal trauma and how we can swing to, as we're learning how to deal with this, learning what it is, getting more information and validating its existence and what to do about it, how we can then naturally swing to an opposite extreme that can be just as far from our balance center as we're hoping to get with the original healing process in the first place.
Right.
So last time we talked about getting to the place where we recognize this is a thing, betrayal trauma, and some of the societal belief systems that keep us in that place of not believing that it's a thing and not handling it well, right? And now what do we do with this? So I think as we're moving forward and talking about this, we want to kind of explain the overall concept of what we see happening. And then we're going to break it down in future episodes more specifically, and then talk about what we can do about that, how we can show up differently.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think here how to even word this.
Yeah.
We're not a big production, and we don't do lots and lots of, editing and things, and so we sometimes think about this as we go, but I just want to make it clear, we're going to talk a lot about sort of what's natural or may tend to be natural and how that can sometimes work against us. But
Right.
I also want to just make it very clear that this reaction of, we've talked about this pendulum and going from one end to the other is a very natural reaction.
Right.
And so I don't want it to feel like,
oh, you did something wrong.
you did something wrong and you're being too extreme now, or you think about your partner, let's say, who is struggling, if this is the case, with like sexually compulsive behavior or pornography or infidelity kinds of issues. They are reacting naturally as well, and it is less effective. This is the whole point of what we're hoping to try to arrive at, is sometimes our natural reactions to things are not as beneficial to us as it can feel.
Or not as beneficial if we stay there.
Right.
Right. And then if we don't, again, pendulum back and find that balanced middle space.
And it's totally understandable why this would be a process. And so definitely don't hear anything we're saying and feel like we're saying you're just overreacting or you're reacting in a way that you shouldn't be. This is a process, and
Right.
we arrive where we arrive after lots of exploration and travel and curiosity and change. And so we're not trying to say, as we describe this, if you hear something that we've identified as less effective or not healthy or helpful, please consider the bigger picture of what we're talking about and how it fits as we arrive together at better balance.
Exactly. Yes. I love that. And I think a lot of what we're talking about is benefited for me by seeing things through that IFS model that we've talked about before, that internal family systems.
Ooh, good review. Yep.
Yeah. So we're talking about these as this is just different parts of us
Yeah.
that have, in an attempt to be helpful and to help us feel okay and get what we need have developed these patterns, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a very lovely thought and, lovely intention. They're good
Right.
intentions,
Right.
right? There's no bad parts. They have good intentions and they are
Which
trying to be helpful.
am as important to understand about yourself as your partner.
Right.
Because it can really help to put their behavior into context as well.
Exactly.
And we'll talk more about that, but
Yes, exactly. So again, there's no bad parts. It's just a way that part of us has figured out, oh, if I do this, I don't hurt as much. Or if I do
Right.
this, then if I make this meaning out of this situation, then I think that will help things or help me.
So there are no bad parts.
And it's just a natural way that we are trying to do our best to figure things
Yep.
out.
Yep.
And so that's going to be true of us. That's going to be true of our partners. And even behavior that hurts us or hurts other people is typically motivated, it is motivated by something positive,
Right.
trying to help out in some way.
Right.
So again, no shame, no like finger pointing, you're a bad person as we're moving forward and looking at this, right? So one of the things that we talked about briefly last time, which is kind of our main concept for this episode, is that it's not what happened, it's how we're interpreting it, and what our reaction is to it that is often causing suffering.
Right. And this is an old concept. We mentioned this book before. If you haven't read it, please read it. It's short, but it's fantastic. It's called Don't Believe Everything You Think. Mm-hmm. And it really does a good job of laying out that there is, and this is an old concept, that pain is unavoidable, but suffering is avoidable. Suffering is sort of what we do with the pain. Mm-hmm. There are things out of our control that could cause us to spend the rest of our lives suffering.
Right.
But what's in our control is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And what's in our control, we can develop ways to shift our focus, put our attention on other things, even as simple as, for example, you're feeling depressed and you practice gratitude. You spend 5 minutes in a gratitude journal writing about the things that you are thankful for will shift you out of that depression. The idea being that your focus, your attention is very powerful, and it's maybe our greatest tool, I often think.
Right.
And so what happens to us causes pain, unavoidable, life. What we do with it, how we interpret it, the meaning that we make from it. What does this mean? What does this not mean? You've heard these phrases before in our episodes. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing.
Yes. And that can feel entirely oversimplified, I understand. And that's where it's funny because it feels so simple and it's also so complex, right? As we were putting this whole thing together, and we're like, there's just more and more layers. There's just so many, there's a lot of complexity to it and a lot of simplicity to it. And so we're going to try to make it as simple as we can while acknowledging and talking about a lot of these different layers. So that's the main concept. And what we want to talk about with this is that the issues that arise that land us in addiction, that land us in relationships where addiction is present, right? Addiction is a symptom of dis-ease, which we mentioned last time. It is not the actual issue, right? If there's a relationship where addiction is present, there is dis-ease in the relationship. There's dis-ease really with everyone in that relationship. Now, the level of dis-ease may be higher or lower. Like, it doesn't mean that everyone has exactly the same amount of dis-ease, but there is going to be some dis-ease. And the betrayed person's dis-ease is oftentimes overlooked, or it's not recognized as much. And it's very easy for us to put the responsibility entirely on the addiction for the dis-ease that's happening.
Right, because you imagine, somebody coming into a relationship often that already has addiction, they're
Right.
bringing that with them.
That's almost always the case, right?
Yeah, right. And so even though you could say, well, you caused this with this addiction that you brought into the relationship, it still has a ripple effect in the relationship where the partner's reacting to that, and how they react can reinforce or make better or challenge. Or, I mean, if you were to look up the definition of codependent, for example, it actually says, you're overly dependent on a partner for a sense of self, which is often found in relationships where one partner is an addict and one partner is codependent. It's actually in the definition of codependence that you may have an addict partner, because these are the patterns that form in relationships when this happens, or can form. And so there is dis-ease in the relationship and with both persons.
And that doesn't mean that if you didn't, it doesn't mean that this is like victim blaming. It doesn't mean that if you didn't know about it, well, that like changes things. It actually doesn't, because we all have stuff, period. And yes, someone can hide something. And also there are underlying emotional currents. There's patterns that attract to each other. And again, there's nothing about this is saying that any one person is doing something wrong. That like the betrayed person is doing something wrong because they ended up in a relationship with someone who has an addiction. That the addict is wrong because they can't figure their crap out, or whatever it is, right? This is just part of being human. I don't quite know how to explain that better than just saying, because we're always looking for some reason to put the responsibility on, okay, what's the problem? What do we need to like fix and focus? And it's easy to do that when there's something that's seen as the big bad wolf, right?
And I hope in therapy, and this is something we've talked about, the pattern becomes the problem, not the person. So when we talk about it's a what issue, not a who issue.
Right.
Like, it's not fair to say you are the issue. More accurate is your behavior when you do this and this, or say this and this, or have this attitude or this energy. That is the issue. And what we want is for couples to feel united against these patterns, like addiction, like coping. Like Sherry's saying, it's an attempt to solve a problem. The addiction isn't the problem; it's an attempt to solve a problem.
Right.
And these problem patterns are what together we want to address in whoever and wherever we find them.
Yeah. And the thing that we don't think about a lot of times is the effect of systems on that. And we're both systems therapists. And so that's one of the things that we want to talk about, is the system in which these patterns are residing and being affected by all of the different patterns and things that are going on. And so this is what we've been trying to pull apart for a while as we've been talking about things. And kind of what we're coming to is when we see people who get stuck on the other side of the betrayal trauma pendulum, where everything is big, it's huge, and it's insurmountable, and there's micromanaging, and there is like a fear of never being able to move forward, or they can't get over their addiction, or they can't maintain X amount of sobriety, or whatever is going on that other side of the response. It's because of the same issue that is causing the addiction.
Tell us more.
It's like you're a therapist or something. So it's a result of not seeing clearly, which leads to a lack of true connection. So we're not connecting with ourselves, with others, with God sufficiently because we're not seeing clearly, because we have belief systems, traditions from society. Some of them are thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And we make meaning about the things that are going on in our lives. We're interpreting them in different ways that are causing us additional suffering. Is the easiest way to say this. And we have been trying for a while to figure out how to talk about this in like a more succinct way.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be a bunch of episodes as we're talking about it.
Yeah, if we were
So,
better at this, maybe.
yeah, or if we, if this is our full-time job to only create these podcast episodes. But we're thinking about it as we're seeing clients. We're thinking about it as we talk with each other about how do we address this. And I think we're finally getting to a place where we can talk about it well. But that's the concept. And here's the thing. Every single one of us have come by our belief systems, the traditions of our society, right? Or our culture or our family or our relationship, honestly.
Yeah.
That's just how it is, right? These things that people have told us from the time we were little, society, the messages we're getting everywhere. We come by those messages, honestly. It's not like one day we were like, oh, it's a Tuesday. I think I'm going to, come up with this really unhealthy way of thinking about things, right?
We've all been doing the best we can with what we had.
Exactly. And a lot of us are believing the same types of things, right? So when that is the underlying current of what we just believe, that just is, right? It's seen as a truth, right? Because we've heard it so many times. It then makes it very hard to challenge. It's hard to challenge what you see as truth, or when you don't see something as different, or as that possibility could be better. For example, I had a lot of sleeping problems for a long time, and I never slept through the night. It was unusual for me to only wake up maybe 2 or 3 times a night, right? And I truly believed that other people would talk about sleeping through the night, right? And I legitimately thought, oh, they're just like the weird outlier, deep sleeper, right? Like a sibling that would just conk out and be asleep all night. I'm like, well, that's just weird and abnormal, right? Because it's just what I had experienced my whole life, right? And so it took a lot of outside support for a long time, people saying this over and over and over again, like, no, that's not normal. No, that's not normal. No, that's not normal, to recognize, oh, maybe that isn't actually normal. And I could do something about that. But believing that it was normal to wake up 4 or 5 times a night on average kept me stuck, because I didn't see that it wasn't normal, that it wasn't a healthy way to do things, and that there could be a different way that could be better, more effective. I came by it honestly. I was, born that way, right? And it was hard to challenge that narrative because I couldn't see clearly, because that's just how I experienced life, right? We notice this, we're really starting to get a lot better with this societally as we go, oh, maybe as a white male, I may not have any idea what it's like to be a black female, right? And it's super important for me to lean into that space and get these other perspectives, right? So we're doing that as a society. We're starting to do that. There's a lot of societal messaging that is keeping us stuck. A societal messaging about mental health types of topics. Like we have a very fundamental misunderstanding, a lot of people, about what forgiveness is and what it isn't. And that gets us very stuck.
Right.
Right. Things like that, where it's in a mental or emotional concept and we're missing the point. We're not seeing clearly, and it's keeping us stuck from being able to make more meaningful meaning and therefore healing ourselves and our relationships. And again, that's a very broad concept, and we're noticing this specifically in this betrayal trauma space.
Right. And it's underneath everything.
Right.
I mean, it's underneath for the addict when, they feel stressed or overwhelmed or rejected or alone.
Right.
And the belief is, no one's ever going to meet my needs. Nobody can. I'm on my own. I've got to take care of myself. And it's a lot easier for addiction kinds of things that are not healthy, but yet they're present and they persist. And so these beliefs are underneath
because they're
everything.
Effective at covering up
Right.
the problem. Yeah. So as we move forward, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the patterns of addiction, which I think are a little bit more familiar with now. And we're going to talk about some of the underlying patterns under betrayal trauma, and being a good woman in society in general, and how that's affecting our ability to heal and make change in our relationships.
Right.
So stay tuned. Keep coming back, and we'll see if we can pull this apart and really get in there deeply in a way that's meaningful to you.
And thank you for your patience as
Yes.
we live our lives and have all the things we're doing, as we also want to create these podcasts in a meaningful way for you. And we appreciate your patience.
So join us on this journey.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.